What's happening to you? No, stop it! May God strike down whoever did this to you.
I chose this.
This is the strength you sought? But why?
Because I sent corpses back to Mehmet instead of our son.
One of the things that has been fascinating this week is for me to learn the true history of Vlad the Impaler, and I'm surprised at actually how accurate the movie is for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to honor the history of this man and the period in which he lived as much as we could. You know, it is a Hollywood film after all, so we had license to embellish slightly, but I think we did okay. I think we did okay. I mean, it's hard to be completely accurate because it was such a long time ago, and you know, once Vlad was dead, his enemies took the throne, and power was handed to somebody else, and the history books were rewritten, and a lot of his stories have become slightly Chinese whispers, as it were, and you know, so his stories are very, very contradictory in many different forms. So I think what I did as I was doing research for the film was just find elements of him that were interesting, that felt real, and that I'd read in many different books. And I thought, well, if they've been written about in different books by different people, then probably they're closer to the true story than other bits that I hadn't read before. So,
which fits very well with Dracula, who is sort of all the Universal monsters, the more esteemed, proper monster, and yet also has this great pop sensibility.
Yeah, and longevity too. I mean, he really is the one that, I mean, he was on the screen in a Universal picture in 1932, so it's a long time ago, and he's still, you know, he still has a following and is a fascination with this character and with the vampire theme as in general. But you know, his name is massively famous. People know the man with the fangs, you know. And what was nice about this movie and this story was it was part of the character of this very famous character, but a part of his story that people don't know so much about. So we were bringing a origin story, as it were, to life, and giving people a bit of a background to the man behind the vampire.
Do you try to concentrate on the history or the truth of just within the screenplay, or do you take in the broadness and the scope of what Dracula has been over the last century?
No, I mean, I would be remiss to think I could encapsulate everything I read or want to bring to the screen from the history that I read or the books that I read. But I like to think that I brought something from the real man that walked this town, actually. You know, we're in Bucharest, and Vlad was the first man who ever wrote the name Bucharest in a letter to traders in you know, in Slavonic letters. So it's very interesting to think that, you know, we're here, and I've finally come home to this place where I've read so much about.
Do you know where you'd like to see the character go now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I have a whole list of places I'd like to turn up as Vlad or as Dracula. That's the great thing about this character. You know, he's immortal, so as long as he sticks to those vampiric rules that vampires have to stick to, you know, he can turn up anywhere. He can live forever almost, and that's a strange concept if you think about it. He can go anywhere. He could have seen things that we only read about in history books, and we'll see things in the future that when we're long dead. So the potential and the scope of his journey and his the stories he could tell through his eyes it's huge, massive. So yeah, it's who knows where he'll turn up next. It's an interesting thing, isn't it, to think that by the scene right at the end of the film, where you see him walking through a modern-day contemporary market in the evening, what that man must have been through. Well, what could he have been through? And then you start thinking about the periods in which he's now lived through, from 1490 all the way up to 2014. You know, that's that's almost mind-boggling to think what he could have experienced or, you know, dealt with.
The world. Never forget who I am.